Every great rivalry needs an origin story, and in the world of supercars, this one might be the best there is. It doesn't start in a boardroom or a design studio. It starts with a broken clutch, an angry customer, and one of the most insulting sentences ever spoken in the history of the automobile. "Let me make cars. You stick to making tractors." Those words were spoken by Enzo Ferrari himself, dismissing a wealthy Italian industrialist who dared to walk into his factory and criticize his cars. Enzo assumed the man would slink away embarrassed. Instead, that tractor manufacturer went home, gathered the best engineers he could find, and built a company whose entire purpose, from day one, was proving Enzo Ferrari wrong. That company still exists today. It builds some of the fastest, loudest, most outrageous cars on the planet, and it still wears a fighting bull on its badge as a permanent symbol of defiance. This is the story of Automobile Lamborghini, a brand born out of spite, nearly killed by bankruptcy not once but repeatedly, and somehow still standing as one of the most desirable names in the entire automotive world. Ferruccio Lamborghini was not some rich kid playing with his father's money. He was born in 1916 into a farming family in rural Italy, and his path to wealth started with fixing engines, not driving them. After serving as a mechanic during the Second World War, Lamborghini returned home and started converting leftover military hardware into agricultural equipment. In 1948, he founded Lamborghini Trattori, a tractor company, and it was an immediate success. Italy needed to rebuild its farmland after the war, and Ferruccio's tractors were reliable, well-engineered, and exactly what the country needed. Within a few years, he was a wealthy man, and he expanded into other ventures too, including oil heating systems and air conditioning units. By the late 1950s, Ferruccio Lamborghini could afford to buy pretty much any car he wanted. What he wanted was a Ferrari. He bought a Ferrari 250 GT, and then bought a couple more. But he wasn't satisfied. He found the clutch kept failing, and being an engineer at heart, he figured out the exact mechanical flaw causing it. So he did something most Ferrari customers of the era would never have dared to do. He drove to Maranello and asked to speak with Enzo Ferrari directly, to explain the fix. Enzo did not take the meeting well. According to the story that's been repeated for over 60 years now, Ferrari brushed him off with the line that changed the automotive world forever, telling Lamborghini to leave the sports cars to him and go back to his tractors. Ferruccio Lamborghini was 57 years old at the time. Most men in his position would have shrugged it off. Instead, he decided he was going to build a better car than Ferrari, purely to prove a point. Lamborghini didn't just want to build a fast car, he wanted to build the car he felt Ferrari should have sold him in the first place. Refined. Comfortable. Powerful. Reliable, unlike the temperamental race-bred machines Ferrari was known for at the time. To pull it off, he raided Ferrari's own talent pool. He hired Giotto Bizzarini, the engineer who had designed the engine for the legendary Ferrari 250 GTO and had recently been fired by Enzo himself, to design a brand new V12. He brought on a young engineer named Giampaolo Dallara, who would later go on to found his own legendary racing engineering firm, to handle the chassis. And he tapped designer Franco Scaglione to shape the body. In March of 1963, Automobile Lamborghini was officially founded in Sant'Agata Bolognese, a small town not far from Ferrari's own factory in Maranello, a location Lamborghini almost certainly chose on purpose. The first road car, initially called the 350 GTV and then renamed the 350 GT, made its debut at the Turin Motor Show that same year. It was built in small numbers and reportedly sold at a loss, but that was never really the point. The point was proving that Ferruccio Lamborghini could build a proper car, and he had. If the 350 GT was Lamborghini's proof of concept, the car that came next is the one that turned the company into a legend. In 1966, Lamborghini released the Miura, and it is, without much argument, one of the most important cars in automotive history. What made the Miura revolutionary was its layout. Instead of putting the big V12 up front like every other Grand Tourer of the era, Lamborghini's engineers mounted it transversely, behind the driver, a mid-engine configuration that had never really been attempted outside of pure racing cars. Standing barely over 3.5 feet tall, with a top speed north of 170 miles per hour, the Miura didn't just outperform anything Ferrari had on the road, it essentially invented the modern supercar layout that virtually every high-performance car still uses today. The design, penned by a young Marcello Gandini working for the Bertone studio, was so striking that the Miura became a pop culture icon almost overnight, later famously opening the 1969 film The Italian Job with a jaw-dropping drive through the Italian Alps. Demand exploded far beyond what Lamborghini's small factory could produce, and between 1966 and 1969, they sold around 150 units, a genuine sensation in the supercar world of the era. For the first time, Ferruccio Lamborghini wasn't just building an alternative to Ferrari. He was building the car that Ferrari now had to answer to. The follow-up to the Miura might be even more famous. In 1971, at the Geneva Motor Show, Lamborghini unveiled a prototype so radical it reportedly left the crowd speechless, literally. The name Countach comes from a Piedmontese dialect exclamation roughly meaning something close to astonishment, and it's exactly the reaction Gandini's design was going for. The production Countach arrived in 1974 with a sharp, angular wedge shape that looked more like a spacecraft than a car, and it introduced the world to Lamborghini's signature scissor doors, hinged at the front and swinging straight up instead of out. The Countach would remain in production, evolving through multiple variants, for 2 decades, becoming the definitive supercar poster on bedroom walls throughout the 70s and 80s. But behind the scenes, the company that built it was falling apart. The global oil crisis of the 1970s crushed demand for large, thirsty V12 supercars right as Lamborghini was trying to expand. Ferruccio Lamborghini himself, exhausted by the constant financial pressure, sold his remaining stake in the company and retired to his vineyard in 1974. Without its founder, and without the capital to survive the downturn, Automobili Lamborghini collapsed into bankruptcy in 1978. What followed was one of the strangest ownership sagas in automotive history. The Italian courts placed the company into receivership, and in 1980, 2 French brothers named the Mimrans purchased it and stabilized the business, releasing the Jalpa and continuing production of the Countach. In 1987, the Mimrans sold Lamborghini to the Chrysler Corporation for more than 8 times what they'd originally paid, a huge return, and evidence of just how much brand value Lamborghini still carried even after bankruptcy. Chrysler poured money into the brand throughout the late 80s, but by the early 90s, the American automaker decided to offload it, selling Lamborghini to an Indonesian investment group called Megatech in 1994. Ownership bounced between Indonesian and Malaysian investment firms for the next several years, and the 1997 Asian financial crisis wiped out much of that ownership group's wealth almost overnight, leaving Lamborghini financially stranded yet again. Through all of this turmoil, Ferruccio Lamborghini himself passed away in February of 1993, at the age of 76. He didn't live to see the company find the stable home it desperately needed, but that home was closer than anyone realized. Here's the twist that makes this whole saga even more remarkable. When Lamborghini finally found stability, it came from an almost accidental conversation. Company representatives, still scrambling for resources during the Asian financial crisis, reached out to Audi simply looking to source an engine and all-wheel drive system for a planned smaller baby Lambo model. During those conversations, word reached Volkswagen Group's chairman, Ferdinand Piëch, that Lamborghini itself was actually available to buy. Piëch, a legendary and famously obsessive engineer in his own right, recognized an opportunity that Chrysler and the Indonesian investors had struggled to capitalize on, an iconic, world-famous name that had simply never had the deep-pocketed, patient ownership it needed to reach its full potential. On July 10, 1998, Audi officially acquired Automobili Lamborghini, folding it into the Volkswagen Group alongside Bentley and, eventually, Bugatti. It's genuinely hard to overstate how important this moment was for the brand's survival. For the first time in its history, Lamborghini had an owner with the manufacturing expertise, quality control, and financial resources to build cars at a genuinely world-class standard, without sacrificing the outrageous, no-compromise personality that made people want a Lamborghini in the first place. The results were almost immediate. In 2001, the Murcielago arrived as the brand's new flagship, and it was the first modern-era Lamborghini built with Audi-level fit and finish underneath all that Italian drama. It was the beginning of an entirely new chapter for the company. Under Audi's ownership, Lamborghini finally had the stability to actually build out a real, coherent model lineup, and the results reshaped the entire supercar market. In 2003, the Gallardo launched as Lamborghini's first true entry-level model, and it became the best-selling Lamborghini in the company's history at that point, putting the brand within reach of a much wider pool of buyers than ever before. The Murcielago continued at the top of the range until it was replaced by the Aventador in 2011, a car whose 700 horsepower naturally aspirated V12 and scissor doors carried the Countach's DNA directly into the modern era. The Gallardo gave way to the Huracan in 2014, which became one of the most successful and recognizable Lamborghinis ever built. And then, in 2018, Lamborghini did something that would have seemed unthinkable to Ferruccio himself. They built an SUV. The Urus combined a twin-turbo V8, genuine off-road capability, and Lamborghini styling into a package that dominated the ultra-luxury SUV segment almost immediately, and it quickly became the company's best-selling model by a wide margin, proof that even a brand built entirely on outrageous two-door supercars could successfully reinvent itself when the market demanded it. Every performance car brand on Earth has had to answer the same question over the last several years: what happens when the combustion engine era ends? Lamborghini's answer has been to embrace electrification aggressively, while refusing to let it dull the experience that made the brand famous in the first place. The Aventador's V12 successor, the Revuelto, launched as Lamborghini's first-ever hybrid production car, pairing a naturally aspirated 12-cylinder engine with 3 electric motors for a combined output north of 800 horsepower and a 0-60 sprint in roughly 2.5 seconds. The Urus followed with its own plug-in hybrid variant, the Urus SE, adding genuine electric-only range on top of supercar-level performance. And in 2025, Lamborghini unveiled the Huracan's long-awaited successor, the Temerario, swapping the old naturally aspirated V10 for a twin-turbo V8 paired with 3 electric motors, revving to a screaming 10,000 revolutions per minute redline and producing over 900 horsepower combined. With the Temerario's arrival, Lamborghini completed a genuinely remarkable transition. Every single model in the current lineup is now a hybrid. The V12 has electric assistance. The V8 supercar has electric assistance. Even the SUV has a plug-in variant. It's a deliberate strategy from a brand that has always sold emotion as much as raw speed, using electric torque to make the cars faster and more responsive, rather than treating hybridization as some kind of environmental compromise. More than 60 years after Enzo Ferrari told Ferruccio Lamborghini to go back to his tractors, that dismissive comment is one of the most famous quotes in automotive history, mostly because of how spectacularly wrong it turned out to be. Lamborghini's model names still nod directly back to Ferruccio's other lifelong passion, Spanish bullfighting. The Miura, the Murcielago, and the Aventador are all named after legendary fighting bulls, and the charging bull on the badge itself represents Ferruccio's own zodiac sign. Every detail of the brand, even today, traces back to one stubborn farmer who refused to accept being told his opinion didn't matter. The company he founded has been bankrupt, sold off in pieces, passed between American, Indonesian, and Malaysian owners, and somehow still ended up as one of the most desired and profitable supercar brands on the planet under Audi's ownership. That's not a normal survival story. That's a brand that simply refused to disappear, because the idea at its core, build something better, and never apologize for how loud you are about it, turned out to be bigger than any single owner or economic crisis. From a broken clutch and an insulting sentence in Maranello, to a factory built out of pure spite a few miles down the road, to bankruptcy, foreign ownership, and finally a permanent home under Audi, the story of Lamborghini is proof that the best rivalries in history are usually personal. Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't set out to build a car company. He set out to prove one man wrong. 60 years later, the fighting bull is still charging, and Enzo Ferrari's tractor joke is still the punchline of one of the greatest comebacks in automotive history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of Lamborghini, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we've got more documentaries like this one covering the biggest names in automotive history on the way. Drop a comment and let us know which car company you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.